60% mental and 40% physical.
Math was never our strong suit, but breaking down Ohio State football is. Sit back and join us for BuckeyeGrove Instant Access, part of the Unscripted Ohio Podcast Network.
You can do it!
Brought to you by BuckeyeGrove.com. Post-game thoughts, immediate analysis, and much, much more to put the big game into perspective. Without any further delay of game, here's your host, Kevin Noon.
Kevin, goddammit.
Hey, welcome to the BIA podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Noon. We'll be joined by Joseph Hastings here in a second. It is a Thursday, and so much going on out there right now in the world of recruiting. Ohio State has just wrapped up a pair of camps on campus. They will have some big official visitors coming in this week. All of that here in a second. And, of course, Rivals.com has its 5-star challenge going on down in Atlanta. Joseph Hastings is down there for us. I was supposed to be down there. Southwest Airlines computer systems saw fit for me not to be after 3 flight cancellations, but Joseph was the smart one and took a car instead of a plane, and he is on the horn right now from Atlanta. Joseph, how's it going?
Kevin's going great. Just wrapped up the camp a couple of hours ago. It was just an awesome turnout. We really appreciate all the kids that made the trip there here to Atlanta, and they're all gracious and talking with the media and really put on a show today. There was a lot of highlight reel plays that were made, and definitely a lot to see today. So yeah, it was a great day. We're gonna have the underclassmen challenge that Rivals will be hosting tomorrow as well. Check-in begins tonight, so definitely a lot of 2023 and 2022 talent in town today.
And we'll get to the Rivals Camp, Rivals Challenge here in a second, but let's talk about the biggest news today, and that is JT Tuimoloau starting his visit. Whether or not when the clock officially starts on that remains to be seen, but he will arrive in Columbus probably by the time most of you are listening to this podcast. It is an evening flight. I will be taking the BIA show on the road to John Glenn International Airport. But Joseph, just how important is this official visit for Ohio State? Probably not going to put them up in a helicopter the way that USC did, but Ohio State's certainly going to go out there and swing for the fences.
Yeah, this is a big-time official visit. This is exactly what Ohio State fans have been waiting for the longest time. The COVID-19 pandemic pushed back the dead period so many times. At one point, it really didn't seem like JT would be able to take his officials before having to enroll and sign paperwork with the school. But now it's happening. He's had 2 official visits, USC and Washington under his belt. He's got a couple more after this. Ohio State went to Oregon and Alabama. And, a lot of people talk about, and it's hard not to bring up the fact that Alabama, which is perceived to be Ohio State's biggest threat to land JT, is going to get the last visit here. And that's a big thing for, the Crimson Tide, especially with JT expected to make his decision shortly after that last visit to Alabama. Ohio State really needs to knock it out the park, and they're really setting themselves up in a good position to do so. With him arriving tonight, like you said, we don't know exactly when the official visit itself begins, but this weekend is the best weekend in terms of getting official visitors in town. There's only 3 targets, Dallin Hayden, Kojo Anwi, Jake Pope, and then also 5-star commit CJ Hicks, who will be helping out in recruiting JT. There's only those official visitors in town along with JT, so this was the perfect weekend to get him in town. And I think the Buckeyes really know the urgency of this visit. They've been waiting well over half a year to get him in town. So definitely a very important trip here that JT's going to be taking. And, I still think Ohio State's the school to beat in his recruitment, but these visits will really determine where he ends up going.
It's probably too much to ask for Ohio State to do so well that JTT cancels all of his other visits. I mean, he didn't sign on signing day. He was bound and determined to take these visits. So the likelihood of Ohio State, who, depending on who you talk to, may or may not have been the perceived leader by a slight margin going into the visits, that might be a lot to ask for. But, outside of that, Ohio State certainly is going to have to leave a lasting impression that will survive these other 2 visits. And Certainly, Oregon is going to offer up a lot in terms of allowing him the potential of playing both football and basketball. And then, of course, you have Alabama, who is Alabama. And Ohio State fans certainly are only going to remember the players they miss out on against Ohio State more so than the battles that Ohio State wins.
Yeah, you brought it up. Alabama and Ohio State, we saw them in the championship game earlier this year. I think, I'm not a prophet or anything like that, but I think that we'll be seeing them in some more title games, in the coming years, especially with Nick Saban signing an extension, Ryan Day looking like he's not going to go anywhere. So, you're going to need to win these battles if you're the Buckeyes, coaching staff. You're going to need to win these battles against the Crimson Tide because JTT, he's the type of player that turns, the direction of a program in your favor, especially if you beat out Alabama for him. You put him opposite of Jack Sawyer. That's a defensive line that's going to wreak havoc in the trenches in the coming years if he ends up signing there. So, beating out Alabama would be huge, especially with the position that they're in terms of this visit. I know I said that, this was a great weekend in terms of not having that many official visitors, but obviously the preferred time that they would have liked to have gotten him on campus would have been June 25th through the 27th. Get him for that final weekend. He has to make a decision a few days later. That would have been the ideal time. So, if the Buckeyes are able to pull this one out, it's not a guarantee, as you mentioned. It would be a huge win over a program that, they're going to have to start picking up those recruiting wins against. We saw last cycle they lost out on JC Latham, another big-time recruit in the trenches. This would kind of not necessarily make up for it because, obviously they're on different sides of the ball, but it would just be massive if Ohio State's able to land JTT over Alabama and even the nearby schools like Oregon and USC. And, those are two programs that he's given a strong look at.
Well, we'll have plenty of time. Well, not that much time, but plenty of time after the visit to at least kind of talk about it. Not that JTT does a lot of interviews, so we'll kind of see what we know coming out of that. But trying to keep this show moving here, let's talk about what you've seen today in Atlanta at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge. Certainly some of the familiar names that we're used to talking about were there. Interesting timing, though, based on everybody's taking officials and whatnot. So probably a little bit better for people who are already committed to a program, not having to worry about getting in, getting out, getting somewhere else. What have you seen?
Yeah, speaking of people committed to a program right now, obviously C.J. Hicks, Gabe Powers, Tegra Tuimoloau, a trio of Ohio State commits were in Atlanta. They arrived yesterday. They attended the Rivals 100 5-Star Challenge today. I was really impressed with what I saw from each of them. Specifically, Gabe Powers, he was somebody that, one of the things that people talked about was, can he potentially grow into a D-end? And you've seen him already, Kevin. You've seen him a couple of times this year. He's definitely has the body frame to fill out to be a defensive end, but his coverage skills were fantastic today. He was sticking by, running backs who are a lot faster than him in terms of running downhill, 40-yard dash times. But he did a good job. And I was talking with one of the linebackers coach that was there, and he told me what Gabe did was he closed off the inside, prevented the inside route, and then as soon as the running back would take off, whether it's on a wheel route or just running straight down the field, Powers would accelerate and was able to keep up with them stride for stride. So he really impressed me there. C.J. Hicks definitely did a good job too. He had a really solid rep against Trevor Etienne, who, if you all know him, he's one of the best all-purpose backs in the country. He had a really good rep against him. But something C.J. told me that, and what may have been a factor here was that he had been doing track and then also going down here in the heat and all the travel. It kind of took him a little bit out of his mojo, but his athleticism was obviously on display. And Tegra Tuimoloau made it to the best on best challenge, O-line, D-line, which was and he had a pretty good rep against Kristen Miller. So yeah, I liked everything that I had to see today. I'll also talk about some of the targets. People are interested in, like Dallin Hayden. He did a really, really good job in terms of his cuts, maintaining his balance. Even in the pass catching drills, he didn't make it to the next round because his quarterbacks kind of let him down on some routes, but he did a good job on running his routes, specifically on wheel routes. I found them to be very impressive. and he actually had a good win against Gabe Powers in the one-on-one versus linebackers, where you get the ball, you run, and you try and make a move within 10 yards. Yeah, he had a win against Powers. He had another win that Coach Alford saw on video actually and messaged him about it. So Hayden looked really, really impressive as well. And also I'll bring up Sean Murphy, Fox-star linebacker, someone who told me yesterday that Ohio State's starting to pick up contact with him. I found him to be very impressive in his pass coverage game, because we know that he's the typical kind of inside linebacker. He's gonna run downhill, make plays in the run game, but I thought he excelled when having to cover running backs today. So those were kind of my big takeaways from today.
And as we all know, Joseph will write a ton about this coming out of the event, so be sure to keep it locked in at BuckeyeGrove.com. If you're not a member, sign up using offer code VISITS2021. Get a free trial through August 10th. Get all of the coverage going through this big recruiting month, and then even go all the way through Big Ten football media days at the end of July. That's offer code VISITS2021. We have so much more to talk about here. We're going to take a quick break, reload, and we will talk to you here in 30 seconds. Egg Water Conditioning has been treating well in city water in Central Ohio with American-made water filtration products for over 60 years. Have a water quality problem? The water treatment experts at Hague know how to solve it. Not sure if your water softener is working? They will test, inspect, and sanitize any brand of water softener for only $20. Schedule a system checkup or water test today by calling 614-836-2195 or visit them online at HagueH2O.com. That's HAGUE H2O.com. Welcome back to the BIA podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Noon, joined by Joseph Hastings. Enough of the formalities. Let's get right back into news. Joseph pushed a story yesterday about a defensive end, Wilfredo Ibar, 2022 pass rusher. Maybe not 2022 for much longer, though. I'll let Joseph kind of pick it up from there with his excellent reporting on that.
Absolutely. So I got to speak with Cheshire Academy head football coach David Dykman yesterday, and it was a really revealing conversation. He's very honest about where things stand with Wilfredo, and he essentially told me that Wilfredo is going to be reclassifying to the class of 2021. Interestingly enough, Wilfredo was actually, he had reclassified before when he had entered Cheshire Academy, and he's going to be back in the 2021 class now. And, with him being in the 2021 class, that means the decision should be imminent. I asked Coach Dykman, what he believes, which school he believes is the front runner in his recruitment, and he said Ohio State. This past weekend on his official visit, he was really impressed by not only the coaching staff, but the facilities, the people there, just everything all around stood out to him. He's built up really good relationships with Coach Matt Barnes, Larry Johnson, obviously, Ryan Day as well, and he feels very comfortable with the program. And I asked him, honestly, I said, hey, what is the percentage that Wilfredo will end up signing with Ohio State? And he said high. That's all he had to say. He said it was high. There's just a lot going right now in Ohio State's favor. And the fact that he may not even be taking his USC official visit this weekend is very telling. I submitted my future cast, and as people on, the Buckeye Grove board know, I'm not necessarily one who just submits future casts, all the time. I'm very, I act like I have a bunch of future casts that, I have to save for, the rest of my life or anything like that. I'm not someone who submits them a lot, but, I decided to do it. I felt very confident after speaking with Dykman that Wilfredo's going to be heading to Ohio State. And I mean, we talked about JTT earlier in this conversation, Kevin. You put JTT, Wilfredo Ibar, Jack Sawyer, that you're going to start looking into that being one of the best DN classes, at least in the Rivals.com era in terms of the rankings era. So it's looking very likely that Wilfredo's going to be heading to Columbus at the next level.
There you go. I will talk about the Columbus camps here in just a second, but one more piece that Joseph was able to push out today. Addison Nichols came off of his official visit. In short, kind of, what were the high points of your conversation there, just as we're starting to get a little long on the show?
Yeah. So Nichols just told me that he enjoyed his time with the Ohio State staff. He enjoyed being able to meet all the people. He had only met Ryan Day and Al Washington before, so he was really fascinated by being able to hang out with Coach Stud you see the practices early in the morning, got up at 6:30 a.m., watched the O-linemen go through their drills, and Coach Stud coached them up, which he really appreciated. He also got to spend a lot of time with Harry Miller. Got some funny, Harry Miller stories as well. Just you know how smart Harry is, and there were a couple ones that he shared with me that he really liked. But overall, Ohio State is in his top 5. He's going to be taking officials to Tennessee and USC, this month, and he's going to be making a decision next month. I don't know if I would say Ohio State is the school to beat. I don't think he's at that point in his recruitment where he knows of a leader. But, yeah, I think the Buckeyes are probably top 3 right now and sitting in a good position following this official visit.
A name that we saw at Ohio State's camp both days this week is Sonny Styles, I'm just going to call him the defender because he could really play on all 3 levels, depending on where you want to put him. Is he a safety? Is he a linebacker? Could he be a rush in for you? He came out on Tuesday to support a cousin who was going through the camp, and then he came out on Wednesday and was able to work out with various position groups. Certainly somebody who seems to have, there's no doubt a lot of interest in Ohio State, has a lot of interest in Notre Dame with his his older brother, Lorenzo Jr., going to play receiver for the Fighting Irish. Still not ready to tip his hand like he's in any sort of hurry. He's got, some Southern visits coming up, but, just every time that we see Sonny Styles, I mean, it's amazing that he is a 2023 and still has 2 years of high school ball to go. Just a real impressive player.
Yeah, he really is impressive. Impressive person as well. I've spoken with Sonny a couple of times, and very mature for his age. And he's seen his brother go through the recruiting process. He's also had a dad who went through it and played college football as well. So he's a very mature person, a mature player. He's worked with all 3 levels of the defense with Ohio State this month. Whether it's Coach Johnson, Coach Washington, Coach Combs. So there's a lot to like in terms of his versatility. And, I mean, look, we're focused right now even on 2021 with JTT, and then you also have 2022 of all the official visits. But if you're looking at 2023, Ohio State really has to, I don't think they would mind if Sonny Styles is the first commitment in this class. I would say, he would be the leader that they're looking for. He would be the guy that people would follow. He would kind of open up the floodgates, and he's one of the top players in the country. So, the fact that he's been on campus 3 days this month, in the span of 3 weeks, or less than 3 weeks, I think that's, I don't know how telling it is, especially since with Ohio State being the school that he's the most closest to. But I think it's very encouraging that he's making his way out and has worked out with them 2 times already. So I mean, I'm not close to putting a future cast in just yet, but I think we're really hearing some good things behind the scenes about where Ohio State stands with Styles.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not ready to put one in either, but, right now, even with all of the Notre Dame speculation or whatnot, I still feel that Ohio State's going to be the destination, but I still think there's going to be a little bit of a road to travel here. Not ready to go on the record yet there. We'll kind of go through some names quickly of people who were on campus this past weekend. The one name that I've been holding off all show just because I'm just terrible at the pronunciation here, but Mateo, the younger brother of the Clemson quarterback. We'll just do that. I'm not going to disrespect somebody by getting their name wrong. He ended up going through defensive end drills with Larry Johnson. He just honestly looks the part. You just walk by him, and you just can't believe that he's as young as he is. What are they feeding him? The whole St. John Bosco crew was there. A lot of them were. They just have some dudes out there, and it's the same school that has produced Wyatt Davis and Court Williams. Certainly a school Ohio State would love to be able to get in and peel off some of these guys. I don't know if the family is going to split the brothers up and have one play at Clemson and one play somewhere else, but if you follow his dad on social, he certainly seems open to the idea, at least on social.
Yeah, and honestly, in terms of following his recruitment, his dad is probably the person to follow. Mateo is not somebody who enjoys doing interviews, and obviously, so it's definitely a lot going on with how many schools are recruiting him, and how many reporters are reaching out. When he conducted the interview after camping at Ohio State. It just he said it was a great university. Talked about learning from Coach Johnson, but he didn't reveal too much. He didn't tip his hand too much in terms of how he really feels about Ohio State or how much interest he has in them. So I think it'll be very interesting to see how his recruitment plays out. Clemson obviously has to be looked at as, not necessarily the school to beat, but probably the school that's in the best position right now, just based on the relationships they have with the coaching staff, his brother being there. So we'll see what goes on with him. But, Ohio State getting him on campus is definitely a good sign. And it's a school that they're very familiar with. The head coach, Jason Negro, I spoke with him last month. He told me about the relationship he has with Coach Stud and, obviously other members of the coaching staff. So we'll definitely see what goes on with Mateo in the future.
Another name that was there working out was Chase Basantis out of Don Bosco Prep out of Ramsey, New Jersey. He looked really good going through offensive line drills with Greg Stuara. 6'5", 290 already. Certainly said all the right things there very early in terms of his recruitment, but, a good thing having him on campus and having him really have a chance to start building some relationships. And that's the same high school that produced Tyler Friday.
Yeah, so this is definitely, interesting because, the Northeast is a region that Ohio State hasn't shied away from when it comes to recruiting. So getting him on campus early is always a good sign. Ohio State has been able to get a lot of rising juniors, big-time rising juniors on campus. We already talked about Sonny Styles, and, they had, A.J. Harris out of Alabama make his way up a top 30 overall prospect. The fact that the Buckeyes are getting these kids on campus is huge, especially with most of July, if not all of July, being blocked out as well. So Chase is somebody who really appreciated the offer that he received from Ohio State back in December. Like you said, I don't think there's really any indication where he's heading right now. But yeah, good for him to get on Ohio State's campus, meet the coaching staff, and we'll see if that leads to anything.
And at risk of leaving names off of 30, 40 other kids that I had the opportunity to talk to, you mentioned the last name that I wanted to talk about, and that was A.J. Harris. Made his way to camp. He got his little workout. His parents, he had an Ohio State shirt on. His parents had Ohio State shirts on. They certainly all looked the part. We had the opportunity to talk to him at a Rivals camp event. Ohio State has not been able to land a player in my memory from the state of Alabama. While he's right there on the Alabama-Georgia line, he is in Alabama. Maybe this might be their best opportunity, and that's not to sit there and say that Ohio State's any sort of favorite or this or that, but I think there's legitimate interest in Ohio State there.
Yeah, we talked about, the conversation that we had with him a couple months ago when we were on our sudden swing, and Harris just, lit up when talking about the Buckeyes. He talked about the development that they have there and, Ohio State being labeled as BIA, Best in America. He was joined by his parents on this trip. That was the trip that they were really looking forward to. And, this is a recruitment that's going to be interesting to follow just because Ohio State hasn't had that success in Alabama. And I kind of heard a little bit behind the scenes over the past couple of weeks that, even though they've been dipping into Alabama with guys like, Tony Mitchell and Harris and others that, they don't know, people don't know if this is going to be the year that Ohio State's able to break through, but, they need to land, one of these guys eventually in enemy territory, especially since we talked about those battles that they're going to be having with the Crimson Tide. If you're able to go into their territory and land a guy, that would be big. So it's good that he got up. I believe it was a 2-day visit. Correct me if I'm wrong. At least that's what he had told us before, that it was from the 16th to the 17th. So yeah, that's very positive for the Buckeyes in terms of their chances with Harris.
And there you go. I'm going to throw it back to you one last time, Joseph, for any final thoughts as we're here at the 24-minute mark. And if not, we will send it home from there.
Yeah, so the last thing I really wanted to say, and I posted it on the Horseshoe Lounge, is that Rivals 250 defensive tackle Kristen Miller will not be taking his official visit to Ohio State this month. He was slated to be in town from June 25th to the 27th. This is on the heels of his official visit to USC. One of his great friends, Michael Williams, committed to USC recently. He's an aspiring actor, as he has told you, as he has shown during his interviews. He's somebody who lights up in front of the camera, and Los Angeles is an appealing destination. I submitted my future cast in favor of the Trojans. Miller told me that he plans on taking his official visit to Ohio State sometime in the season, possibly for that Oregon game for their home opener. I don't know if it gets that far if he doesn't make a commitment by then, just based on what I've been hearing in terms of USC's pursuit of him. And that's definitely kind of a downer in terms of Ohio State recruiting. But at least if this happens, they'll be able to focus on some of those other defensive tackle targets that they have been pursuing. They recently offered Kenneth Grant, and they had Nick James on campus, and they're going to be having Chris McClellan on campus as well. So that was the final thing I wanted to leave off with, that Miller will not be in town, not this weekend, the weekend after, as he was originally supposed to.
And don't forget about Hero Canoe as well, who came through the beginning of the month with the PPI tour. Somebody who certainly seems like Ohio State. I went so far as to put her in a future cast pick, call it a gut feeling, not based on any information at this point. Hero Canoe is a member of the Rivals 100, while Kristen Miller is just outside of it at 119. Joseph, thanks for joining us on this impromptu show. Safe travels after the underclassmen event, and we will talk to you very soon here on the BIA show.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I greatly appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you all for listening to the show. Once again, that was Joseph Hastings. I'm Kevin Noon. It's the BuckeyeGrove Instant Access Show, and we'll talk to you again here very, very soon.
Be sure to stay up to date with BuckeyeGrove Instant Access when the news breaks or after the big game, exclusively at BuckeyeGrove.com or anytime on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher as part of the Unscripted Ohio Podcast Network. Hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the know and never miss a single episode.